Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Hours. As always, this is where we answer all your questions about media and production 24/7. If you're watching on YouTube, you can enter that process by clicking on the QR code that here in just a second I'm going to have up on the screen. There it is. If you're doing that, or if you can't do that, remember you can also just type in the URL, askofficehours.global. That puts your questions into the system, and we thrive on your questions. That's what really kind of sets everything apart for us. We're here to answer your questions full time. It's Thursday, which is our video day, and today we're talking Ecamm Live, the very popular live streaming and video production studio for the Mac that's recently announced Zoom integration, and we're really lucky. We're going to have a great panel in our second hour to talk about that. That's what's coming up then. Right now it's time for your questions. So let's dive in. Alexander, what do our viewers and listeners have on their minds today?
Our first question this morning is from Paul Wallace and Mike Edwards in Austin, Texas and Brooklyn, New York. Panasonic Lumix GH7 has world's first 32-bit float audio recording like the DJI Mic 2, combines a wider dynamic range than 24-bit and phase detect autofocus. What are your impressions?
And Alexander, you're going to start us off this morning.
Yeah, so the GH series, of course, is their Micro Four Thirds line, which has been popular for a very long time. I'm actually on a GH5. I would love that, the GH7. So this looks like this addresses a lot of the issues that the GH6 had. And I was watching Gerald Undun's review of this thing, primarily the autofocus, which was, it's always been a weak point on these cameras. And apparently that is very much fixed. And he did very extensive tests trying to get it to mess up, and it just kept on locking on his face, and it would not, even when he turned, it has human body detection as well, and if you put it into that mode, it's amazing. You can actually turn around and not even look at the lens, and it still tracks you properly, and he would go in and out of frame. So it looks like they've finally addressed the autofocus on this Micro Four Thirds body format. It has the same identical body as the GH6. So they literally took the GH6 body, upgraded the processing on it. They addressed some of the dynamic range issues that the GH6 had. So it looks like this is going to be a great upgrade if you're in the Micro Four Thirds world like me and you got lots of lenses. And personally for me, for the stuff that I do, Micro Four Thirds looks quite good. I'm not doing huge productions. I don't think I need full frame necessarily. And they generally come at quite a good price point. Micro Four Thirds lenses are quite affordable as well. You are, of course, limited in terms of selection with the lenses, so keep that in mind. But I think this is going to be a great camera, and I'd love to actually test one out.
Alex Lindsay, what's your thinking?
It looks good. And I think that actually, for shooters, for shooters that are going out, a 32-bit float solution is a really good thing because you're the kind of person, especially if it's a one-person shoot, being able to have a very wide range. The real question is, what is the signal-to-noise ratio on the input? So your preamp, it has to be really good to make 32-bit worth it. And so that's the question. A lot of people talk about 32-bit float, but if their preamp is noisy, it's not going to matter as much. So that's really the challenge there. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that looks in general. But I think that's good. I think for people who have Micro Four Thirds, I think it keeps them happy in that they keep on getting Micro Four Thirds cameras. I think that the market is largely moving to Super 35 and really moving towards full frame sensors. So you're seeing more and more full frame sensors. Blackmagic now has full frame sensors. The new Canon that we're going to talk about has a full frame sensor, but you're seeing most of the stuff moving towards 35 is the small sensor, and Micro Four and full frame is the sensor that a lot of people are moving to. So I think that's going to be the challenge for the Four Thirds manufacturers.
And Alexander, you want to come back in on that?
Yeah, those are great points that you mentioned, Alex. And I do want to say, too, that so a couple things. On the 32-bit front, if you watch Gerald Undun's video, he did extensive tests. It sounds like that mic, digital mic preamp interface thing for it is quite good. He really tried to make that thing distort, and even when he did, he was able to bring it down in post. So he hooked up a Sennheiser MKH50, which he has boomed overhead. That's his main mic that he uses, and it sounded quite good. I'd have to actually look at the specs of it, but it seems like it is a good interface for that camera. The other thing, too, of course, is I looked at the price, and the price that I saw, I don't know if this was U.S. It might have been Canadian dollars, probably Canadian dollars, came in at about $2,100 for the camera. So, you know, I was looking at the price of the Sony FX30 with the digital hot shoe, and I can get those two with a kit lens for $28.99 Canadian dollars. So I think in the future, Micro Four Thirds is probably not long for this world. I'd probably move to an FX30 for my next one because I think that it's at a very good price point. I'm not sure why they're pricing these cameras at that price point. I still feel like these Micro Four Thirds bodies are a little too much money, and there's so much choice now, so much competition now in this space. I just feel like they could come down a little bit in the price, but I don't know. Maybe the people that are buying these cameras are also primarily still people. I don't know. In Gerald London's video, he actually said that these cameras have a fan in it so they don't overheat. So it seems like they're geared towards video too. So I guess time will tell. We'll see.
Alex, you wanted to replay?
Yeah, I think it'll be at the price point that it's at. I think it has a hard time competing with the FX30. I think that's the real issue. You've got a larger sensor. I think that from the test that I saw in the movie that they showed here, it looked like the autofocus was very good, but still about half the speed of the Sony. You know, so it didn't feel nearly as smooth. It was jumping a little bit more. It was doing a little bit of error correction to it. It wasn't as smooth as the Sony autofocus. And so I think that this, I will say that, you know, I don't shoot stills with these cameras. The FX30 is the last in this form factor that I'm ever going to buy. like whether it's, you know, I have some of the Blackmagic 6Ks and everything else, but I am just done with this form factor. It's really hard to work with when you're dealing with actual filmmaking. So when you're actually out there doing a shoot, having something in a still frame format is just super annoying. You know, you want it to be a square box that you can put things around and that you can hang things from and everything else. And so I think Blackmagic finally broke down and did that. And Sony obviously has been doing that with the FX6s and above. You know, Canon, we'll talk about that in a second, has their own crazy format of how they build their cameras. But the point is that but I think that most of us want when we're doing production is a box. I just need a sensor. I need a sensor box with some I/O, and we're good. You know, and so I think that and I think that the form factor of a still frame form factor is a nod to the past that I don't think we need.
Well, we are about to look at the other side of the river here. So, Alexander, what's the next question?
Next question's coming in from Guy Cochran in Seattle. What do you all think of the new Canon C400?
Alex, start us off.
So the C400 came out. It's got 3 native ISOs. So it's I think it's 800, 3200, I think 12800. So it's got 3 native ISOs. It is still a 6K. I believe it's 6K. You start dropping that down as you start to increase the frame rate. I think that it does 16 stops of dynamic range. So it's got, you know, it's a solid camera for $8,000, $2,000 more than the FX6. So I think that the challenge that it has and what it's going to get compared to is the FX6. Now, in the video that they showed there, they thought that the low light worked a little bit better than the FX6. So that's an interesting, you know, data point on low light. But I think that, you know, I think this is in the same way that the GH7 is a great way to keep Panasonic users happy. The Canon C400 is a great way to keep Canon users happy. It's moving to the R5 connection. So if you have a bunch of EOS lenses, you're kind of
yeah, that's what
you know, like you know. But again,
glass.
That's, you know, changing your lens system is always a scary thing to do because people have, you know, your camera costs $5,000 or $6,000. Your lenses are maybe $50,000, and so, you know, if you're doing a lot of shooting. And so changing that up is a big deal, you know. And so I think that that's the real challenge that Canon is going to keep on having as they change to this R5, and that the R5 requires licensing, which means there's less lenses available. People aren't building at the same rate that they are for everything else. So I think that there's a lot of challenges that they have in that area. So it'll be interesting to see how well it works. I just never see Canons anymore. These C whatevers, the 500s, the 400s, the 200s, the 100s, whatever. I have not seen one in the wild for maybe 7 or 8 years. Like, you know, I'm sure somebody's out there using them. They're selling them. They're making them. But the market feels, when you go out there in the market below $10,000, it feels like it's just owned by Sony Blackmagic. Red. Like those are the three cameras that we see a lot of. When we go over that, when you go over $10,000, it really feels like it's a Sony Airy world. From again from what I see in the day to day. So and Red. So Sony Red and Airy, but mostly Sony and Airy. So those are the ones that we see often. And the other ones with Canon and Panasonic, you're like, okay, go. so like and it wasn't that way 5 years ago. But I think that we just don't see them in the field very often.
Yeah, it's been an interesting transition to see the diminishing of the big brands that I used to work with all the time. And I was a Canon still shooter for a long time. But the last time I pulled it out was probably a Comic-Con a few years ago. And now that my phone is doing such extraordinary work, I just don't find reasons to reach for it as much anymore. And so things change. But I'm happy to see the continued evolution. And the people who do, like Alex said, have this huge investment in lens systems, at the fact they'll keep going for a while, or maybe they're trying to get people to invest in the new lens systems, the R series. If so, good luck to all of them.
And the one place we see in the sub 10,000, I think that Mickey said that he's glad that he rarely has to work with Reds anymore. Where we see it is the Komodo. The Komodo X has global shutter. So when we see people doing stuff with LED walls that are looking for the least expensive, high quality camera that has a global shutter, oftentimes we've seen the Komodos in the last little bit of time.
That makes sense perfectly. Let's move on to the next question.
Next question comes from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Stability AI just released a sound generator. Would this be good to create royalty-free jingles for my podcast?
Jeffrey, what do you think?
I don't know about jingles, but I do know that it does do a pretty decent job. I've been playing with it for the last week or so. And what's really cool is they have that little recording area where you can bring in a sample and try and make it feel like something that really works, because, they're trying to write Shakespeare. That's the bottom line when it comes to music. A lot of these different audio AI systems, websites out there are really starting to go to that next level of recording. Like Suno has, you can get lyrics for a lot of your stuff. Nothing to my knowledge that has any type of stem tracking or anything like that. But if you're looking for something with background music, I did a couple unboxing songs that I made for my shows, and they do a great job. I would probably never use them for any type of major radio play. I don't think that they have the structure flow that will really pop a song, because at the beginning it might go doo 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 doo, and then at the end it might go doo 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 doo, and it just doesn't understand the beginning from the end sometimes.
Interesting. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, when you're only training it on a very simple set, you're only training it on royalty free. You're giving up most of the stuff that's been out there in a modern sense. So I think it'll be very limited. It'll be interesting to see if people jump on it, especially for stability AI. I mean, obviously you can't use it for commercial purposes, but there's such a huge market for people that are using it for non-commercial purposes that aren't really worried about it. That I think that it won't compete. I think that what will happen is someone tests this against Suno and some of the other ones that are not worried about the copyright. They're going to find, this isn't very good. And so then it doesn't matter whether it's royalty free if it's not very good. So I think that's going to be the challenge. Like if it, sure, I'm not going to get sued, but no one's going to notice. So anyway, so I think that's going to be the problem with a lot of these things.
Yeah, it's a challenge for uniqueness as opposed to surveying large language models and things like that. I've been trying to think back. What did I watch on YouTube the other day? Somebody that I used to know, the Gotia pop song that blew up from a guy on the other side of the world who had an idea, created this little piece of work, and it went gigantic. Hasn't done really much of anything since then, but I think what was charming about it to me was its uniqueness. It didn't sound exactly like all the rest of the stuff at the time. And then after it came out, it influenced a lot of people. So I'm just wondering how all this AI content is going to fit into that. How will the new ideas come out and get integrated? It's going to be interesting times we live through here. Jeffrey, your thoughts?
Well, back when hip hop started to come onto the scene, and they started to use a lot of electronic sounds. There was one sound in particular, especially newer rappers use this, and that's basically where the hi hat. As a drummer, you basically do a hi hat, you go ta 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 like that, but then they have this ta 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 like type sound there.
Okay.
So we're what I'm expecting is, there's like with any type of new electronics, new systems, as Mickey said, the 808, perfect example. When you introduce something new and it's got some new idea to it, everybody just kind of latches on and says, okay, we're going to see how we can push that. And sometimes it works, auto-tune, perfect example, all of these things. So we might see from AI some new sound that comes from it that everybody just latches onto and finds a way to either resample it or to put it into their creations.
Yes, I remember Cher's Believe, and nobody had heard that auto-tune brought to the forefront so dramatically before that. Let's go to the next question.
Next question's for me. Has anyone on the panel tried Angry Audio's new mic processor for the Electro-Voice RE20? They also have a version specifically for the Shure SM7B.
Alex Lindsay.
So, Alex, this is just for those mics, or is it designed to make mics sound like those mics?
No, it's specifically tuned for those two microphones.
Wow.
So it's a bespoke preamp. And I'm cutting it to it now so you can see it. So it's a half rack size, and they actually make you can actually rack two of them here. It's kind of neat design. It's got some really cool meters. It's got analog.
The meters are important. Cool meters. That's going to increase the price.
Absolutely. It actually makes you sound better. I don't know if people know.
Yeah, I've heard that meters actually affect the bass more than the treble. Yeah, it's like when you have strong meters, it really brings out a.
If they're high ballistic meters, it's going to react more to the upper frequency.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So it's $8.99 USD, and it has a safety panel in the front, so you can put this plate on it so people can't mess with the switches. It's got lots of gain, and you can also rack two of them together. So it looks like a pretty neat processor. It's got AES EBU digital out as well, and it actually has some form of noise suppression that they said is not just downward expander. So that's the thing that I'm really interested in testing, and just to see how that compares to noise assist on a.
Alexander, do you know the price point?
$8.99.
$8.99 US.
$8.99. So your mic plus $8.99. Are you in a different class mic already? Yeah, it looks like you would be, right? If you take that $395 mic.
Well, I think it's taking a very standard mic that everybody has, and giving a little more, theoretically, a little more oomph.
Yeah, and those are pretty low output mics. Traditionally, everybody was talking about simpler solutions like cloud lifters to get them up into the right range. And this, if it does a much better job than that, might be work. Jeffrey Powers, you had a thought.
Yeah, plus it's rack mountable. It's to give somebody either a higher end podcast or a radio station some ability to control yet lock down. So as an audio engineer, if there's a problem with the microphone, I could definitely go into the server room or the side room and make adjustments for the microphone to fix that while people are still talking on the air. So looks pretty decent. If it's pushing out a decent sound, yeah, why not?
There you go. Let's go to the next question.
Next question is from Gordon Lake in Los Angeles, California. How would you describe the perfect intern?
Alexander, start us out.
Well, I would say one of the things that are most important to me when I hire people is curiosity and the willingness to learn. So, I look for, there's certain things that it's really hard to train people to learn what we call soft skills, right? And I can, technical skills, you can learn that over time, but I need somebody that is genuinely curious about technology, especially if it's for the type of stuff that we do here on the show. I need somebody who has the willingness to learn new things constantly, who's willing to soak up knowledge, who I don't have to tell them where to go, that they just seek out that knowledge themselves and look to improve themselves. I find that characteristic very valuable.
I'm going to assume Alex has a few opinions on this. Alex?
I've been a lot of interns. I have been a lot of interns, and I've had a lot of interns. I think the things that there's basically table stakes. That is the first thing that interns have to get over, which is to be on time, to be appropriate, to dress like they belong there. These seem like simple things. To not talk too much. I think that the thing that probably has us get rid of interns or not renew what they're doing the most is being talkative. So the thing is that it's just like we're trying to work, and they'll be talking about asking questions about what they need to do, or asking thoughtful questions about things that need to be done at the right time. Very useful. Being talkative in general, not useful. It's probably the number one reason we decide, we can't have that person here. Having any kind of political views or any kind of opinions about anything, pretty much, other than you're an intern, don't have opinions, have questions, you don't get to do that at the beginning, and again, and as an intern, that's the way I've been. I just go in quiet and you absorb things, being present. So the thing that you get into with interns a lot is they'll sit there and they're distracted. They're reading. They're on Facebook. They're on. They're talking to other. They're texting their friends. They're doing a bunch of other things. The interns that we prize are ones that sit there. They'll get there and they'll start working on something. If you give it to them, they'll nug through it, and they'll constantly be looking for the next thing. And you never see them looking at their phone unless they're researching something. And you can tell they're looking at something and they're working on something. But you never see them like if you walk behind them, you never see if people think that we're not noticing. We definitely notice when anybody on our staff is on Facebook, 100%. And being on Facebook at an event is you will never get called back. You just need to know that that is the death knell. If a producer walks behind you and sees Facebook up, or any kind of social media, you're not going to, because there's a concern that you're posting things about the event. There's concerns that you're not paying attention to the event. There's a whole bunch of things that happen if you do that. So you got to be super careful about that. But the other thing is that when you realize that the intern is spending time when they're not there doing research and figuring things out and digging up things and everything else, you start to go, oh, this might be someone that can, that we can do something with, and then the main thing is not making the same mistake again. I know the editor that was on, a couple of weeks ago talked about that. If we tell you not to do something again, just don't do it again. We're not upset the first time. We're a little perturbed the second time. By the third time, we decide you can't do that. And so the thing is that you just can't keep on making the same mistakes. But if you do those things, I don't know anybody that wouldn't want to keep you, or at least have you as the intern if you're in that intern position for a long time. Obviously, the ones that suddenly figure out how to do something new and everything else, but the ones that's a tricky business to try to do a bunch of new things. Do it in a safe place. One of the other problems we have is interns that will do too much, and so they're constantly trying to prove themselves, and they're constantly trying to show off, and they're constantly trying to do something new, or they're just thinking out of the box, so far out of the box that it's destabilizing what we're doing. So you want to be, there's a kind of an appropriateness there that's necessary, but it's the most powerful way to get a job or to just learn. If you're in the position of interning, man, it's a great place to be. I still intern for some events. Friends of mine will be in a big event that I don't typically work on, and I try to take all the things I just said and apply them. And just even now, just to sit and get to watch things and learn. I still will learn on the kind of events that I intern for. I will learn a year's worth of knowledge in a couple of days because I'm just sitting there watching everything happening.
Alexander, you want to come back in?
Yeah, and just to build on that, what I said and what Alex said too, that it shows somebody's character when they're willing to spend their own time outside of work to learn new things, and also that really helps them ramp up and learn the job quicker too. But I do say, when someone says to me they spent their entire weekend just researching and doing stuff that is, no one asked them to go do it, but they're using their own free time instead of going out and partying. They spent the weekend learning, I don't know, some new piece of hardware or something like that. So, and that's new knowledge that they've acquired. That's very valuable, and that's someone that I would want to keep.
Alex, you want to come back in?
And as an intern, that's the golden time. You have a whole bunch of people around you that know a lot of things, and the golden time to work really, really hard is there, like in studying all around it. When I was an intern for Prime Sports Network, and my job, what they had me interning for was to type a letter that says, "You win, here's your hat." Like, that's really the only job description that I had. And I turned that into a regional ad designer over a period of time where I was designing all the print ads across, the entire, mountain region, but what I did is by nugging through and I bought Photoshop books. I went to classes. I did all this other. I didn't know anything about Photoshop or Quark or Illustrator. I just, every extra minute was learning how to do that. And I made what I did for them the most efficient I could and made it perfect. And then I kept on doing all this other stuff. And obviously they kept me on for a while. So it was...
It's very much aligned with what everybody's been saying, but I'm going to pass along a piece of information that really helped me in my early career. And that was as I started to interview people and things like that. Somebody once told me, every minute that they're talking and you're listening, you're winning. And I've stuck in my brain for a long time. It is a hard thing to think, I want to show these people that I'm engaged, and that would normally mean that you're asking questions and things like that. And yes, you do want to do that, but as Alex so perfectly articulated, if you're constantly asking questions, you're a cognitive load on the people who are trying to get their work done. So you have to make this balance of be quiet, appear like you're really engaged in being busy, but take your time before you start asking a lot from the system. You want to sit there quietly and just absorb. That's going to stand you. That's what gets you called back the next time, is that person I don't have to think about, but I can just see they're sharp and they're getting the job done behind me. Next question.
Roberto Barrow in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania asks, I have a 672.3 megabyte video for a funeral. The projection software we use, Proclaim, has a 600 megabyte size limit for videos. Can I reduce the file size without editing out any of the content? Can DaVinci Resolve save a file to a smaller size?
Alex Lindsay.
Resolve is a great application. I use it often. Do not export H.264 from Resolve. Its H.264 algorithm is just horrible. So, I always send out Resolve on ProRes, and then I'll compress it somewhere else. But I don't compress it or MXF or whatever. But I'm not going to compress it in H.264 out of ProRes unless it's just for review. So you don't want to do that. But what you can do is if you're on a PC, you look at Media Encoder, Handbrake, Shutter. Those are all things that you could use there. On a Mac, a lot of us use Compressor. Shutter is another good one as well. And you usually can just change the quality of you're going to recompress it, which may do a little bit of damage, but you can usually get away with something that's going to look okay. The easiest place to go is to first look at your frame rate. Is it 60 frames a second or 30 frames a second? You can go to 30 frames pretty quickly. That's going to cut it in half if for some reason that's what it was. The second place to look is the keyframes. So the distance between keyframes. So you're probably at 30 frames or 60 frames, and it depends on the kind of content you have. But if you have content that isn't changing very much, that's a lot of stills, a lot of whatever, think about taking that keyframe rate and move it to 200. You'd be surprised at how quickly it gets smaller when it spreads those keyframes out. So that's a really cheap and easy way to do it. If you do that, take the time to do a 2-pass encode, which will take a lot longer because it has to look ahead. If it doesn't get that right, you're gonna see some smearing and so on and so forth with that long GOP. So if you go to long GOP from something, make sure to go to a 2-pass encoding solution. But you get knocking off 70 megs off of your file is probably not a big deal, and you don't have to go up to 200 if it's already set at 30 or 60. Just make it 90, and it'll be better. So I would take a look at those things, and I think that you probably would be able to carve that off pretty quickly.
Jeffrey Powers.
The only thing I'll add to that is that check the Proclaim software, and once you're done encoding it, put it right in there to see how it's going to react from there, because it will probably like 60 frames a second, like 30 frames a second. It might not like 23.97 frames per second. You might see skips, you might see jumps. that you don't expect from the video there. And same thing with changing any type of bit rates. Like a Premiere Pro, I can actually go from a 12 megabit per second to 10 megabit per second and just take out that extra 72 megs. But if Proclaim just can't handle it, then you'll have to re-encode it again. So do a little bit of testing once you do bring it down to a size that Proclaim will accept.
Let's go to the next question.
Next question is from the QR code. This is Chad in Toledo. Thank you so much for answering my first question. Where is the chat? How do I get more involved? I've been checking email for details and I haven't received any links. Someone mentioned that Guy had some additional questions. Where are those?
So, Alex has raised his hand. So, Alex, you want to explain the Mukana backend process?
Yeah, there's a couple things there that you can do. So if you should see in the email that you're getting, you'll see join Mukana, to ask questions in there. I don't know if I have the email right in front of me, but and so you're going to want to go there. Now, there's two things that you want to do. One is you're going to want to learn. You are going to want to go to Discord. There's a Discord. There should be a Discord link there as well. Let me open this up real quick here. Sorry for that. I wasn't quite ready for that question. Let's see. It's always like, how do I show my email without showing my email? Let's see here.
Yeah, but everything kind of starts on the main officehours.global website. So if you go there,
I think that I think Chad's already signed up.
Okay, good, great.
So what you're looking for here is if you're getting the email every day, I'm gonna just make sure I'm not displaying anything. Yeah. So if you're looking here, this is the email that you're getting every day. And if you've signed up on the website, if you go down here, you'll see some of this and you'll see show links. So to chat, you're looking at the Mukana Lite. You can go to After Hours and Discord. So After Hours is a Zoom meeting that happens all the time. There's people there. If you get there, you're going to notice there's not a lot of people. There'll just be a bunch of names. If you start talking, you'll notice people start turning on their and so they'll come out and start talking to you. So, but Discord is also, there's about over 2,000 people in Discord that are that you can constantly ask. It's a little overwhelming. People get there. There's a lot of channels, but you can go in and talk there. Again, Mukana is where you can ask questions and chat with people during the show. And again, remember that Chad was asking about a 21 by 21 studio yesterday. Keep on asking questions in the show too. You're providing a huge value to our show by asking real world questions about what you're trying to figure out in every day. You could literally ask us questions every day, and we'd be happy to answer them as you start to figure that out. So those are a couple different places to go.
What if somebody doesn't even know how to get to that page, Alex? Is there a simple link to?
You go to officehours.global/join. And so if you go to officehours.global/join and you click on you can sign up there and you'll start getting these emails every day.
There you go. Let's go to our next question.
Next question is from the QR codes. Francis Fry from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Which cable do you recommend to connect an ATEM Constellation 4K as a webcam to a computer? Distance is 15 feet.
Alex, what's your preference?
You're right at the very edge of how far you can take that. It's 15 feet, 10 feet, it's pretty easy. 15 feet can be a little, so you can, it's not something that I would normally do, is to go that far as a webcam. So what you're looking for are USB 3.2s that so you're looking for the USB 3.2 format. You want to see it's a high bandwidth version of the USB. But I will tell you that I have been very unsuccessful getting ones that will work at 15 feet reliably. 10 feet, you get a lot of them that way. 15 feet is a little bit extra. So with an ATEM Constellation 4K, what I would highly recommend is thinking about having its SDI, its program out, going out as SDI, and then having something else at the other end. That might be a mini recorder. It could be a variety of other things that are going to have it go into your computer. But I think that I would, and you're going to find that the mini recorder, the color will actually look better. There's a little bit of a black crush that lives inside of the UVC. Some of us, Zoom corrects for it, but if you're not in Zoom, you're going to see everything look a little more contrasty coming out of the if it goes into Teams or anything other than Zoom, it's going to look a little bit more contrasty than it actually is. And so you're better off finding another encoder for that. But what I would do there on that long run is to go SDI out, get to there, use something like use something like a mini recorder. You can use, there's a lot of different ways of bringing video into it. I for some reason, because I haven't done it for a long time, we use cards to get them in. But you may not have that on your computer. But there's, use an interface for that. The only one that I would not use is probably the Elgato ones. We found that we have a lot of overheating issues with them. But the mini recorder, which is only, I think, $100 or something like that, might be what you want to get in there, or shorten that distance. And again, you have to look at it and decide whether that, what we call the black crush, is problematic for you or not. But it is a little bit, and again, it doesn't affect you if all you're doing is Zoom, but it will affect you in other platforms as they go in.
Let's go to the next question.
Next question is from Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois, and this is from the QR code. We have the 8HJ Club kids in our rally. We have fire, but we still need the lyrics to song about Cyclone B to tune of Good King Wenceslas for our sing-along with the bouncing ball in lower thirds. Where do we find these lyrics and how to do this? Thanks.
Good King Wenceslas. It's one of my favorite holiday songs because it makes a good round. Jeffrey Powers, help us out here.
So yeah, it sounds like that that this is like excuse me, our mashup with using different lyrics for a song. I tried to look for the song with the mashup on YouTube, because sometimes YouTube somebody's already done this, and if that's the case, you just use the YouTube, you mute it, and then you sing along to it from there. If you want to bouncing ball type of situation, and you don't have anything like After Effects, there are some programs out there. I think there's a couple of websites out there that you put in the lyrics. Getting the lyrics is just basically a quick YouTube search or a Google search. But then you're going to have to put it into something that can then convert it into lyrics from there. There is another website. It's a karaoke website that actually does do stems for and it probably has the Good King Wenceslas for music. It can create karaoke versions. So if it has the lyrics to Cyclone B, you will then have the video for that. It probably won't be bouncing ball. It'll probably just be color moving back and forth, because that's usually how they do it. I'll get the website. I'll put that into Makana because I haven't used it in a while. But those are the only options without creating something. And then of course you can put the lyrics into After Effects and then create that bouncing ball effect on your own. Alex.
Yeah, and it depends on what platform you're on. In different. I'm making something up very fast because we're all talking about it. I didn't get further ahead on this, but you can do things like, if you don't have some kind of animation software, a lot of times your presentation software can actually make it work. So here, I only got this far before you started, but if I select this ball and I hit Add Effect and I say I want to move, you'll see it move there. I can go here. I can snap it to there and grab this and pull it up like this. You may have to. This is a lot of work. This is what it might take to do this. Is to, you kind of play with it here. But I'm trying to figure out why it's not giving me there we go. I hold down the Option key there. So what you're going to do, I held down the Option key, and now I can grab this, and you're going to have to, this is how you may end up, if you, pull this up like this. And so now if we go and we preview it, you'll see it go whoop, like that. So there's that's the beginning of what it takes to animate it. so
you can do it in Keynote, actually. That's
free. So Keynote is free. You don't need After Effects or Motion to do it. You might be able to do something like that in Premiere. I don't know how. In PowerPoint, I don't know how to do that. But in Premiere, in Keynote, you can simply you would just hit move across those, and then you have to go through and just change those little teeter bars. If you want to, you can let it just go straight across too. It doesn't have to bounce. You can have it just go do. That would be very fast. So, and then you just have to time it so that each one works. It would probably, if you gave it to me, it'd probably be 4 hours that would take me to do it. Like it's not something like to get it just right. And of course, if I could probably hack something out for you in a half an hour of work in Keynote to make that happen. But in 3 or 4 hours, I could probably build you something that looked pretty professional. In Keynote, it's a free app. You'll just have to put some time into it and learn how that move goes. But what you're looking for is the action. The thing that you're looking for specifically is action, and then you're looking for the move. So there you go.
Next question.
David Brady in New York asks, we have over 750 deployed Zoom rooms at the office. Changes to room names are reflected the native Zoom lookup list on Windows, iOS rooms systems, but not on the Mac client. What gives? Is there a way to force the client to refresh?
Alex?
I don't know. We don't get stuff very often. David was like ready for me to everyone's ready for me to give this deep. We reached out for our phone call, and we think that you should just call tech support. We don't file a ticket. There's no easy answer to why they're not, why the Mac client's not updating, and we have some pretty good sources. And so this is definitely something that's worth filing a ticket. If it's a bug, it sounds like a bug. And so if it's a bug, it'll get fixed, so I would say that I don't think that there's anything that you're not doing right. I think that there's just something that it's not doing. It's not you, it's them. So file the ticket and hopefully they'll get it updated in the next version or two.
Let's go on to the next question.
David in Birmingham, England from the QR code asks, I have an old Beachtek DXA-HDV XLR adapter. Will it function with the ATEM in a similar manner to the units you demonstrated?
Alex Lindsay?
I think it might. I think it actually might do that. It is you have to leave it in. So Mickey points out the output of this Beachtek is mic level only, which means that you'll have to utilize the preamps and add gain within the ATEM, which is not going to be a great experience. You really want to get something that's line. So it's not that it won't work. It's just that it won't work well. You're going to probably hear some self noise in that process. The Beachtek is not the quietest adapter that you can buy. And so you're going to have some self noise from the Beachtek. It's going to come in as a mic, and you're going to have self noise from the ATEM. So you're probably going to have a pretty high noise floor that's sitting there. I'm going to guess that your noise floor is going to sit at -25 or -30. So there'll be a lot of, so unless you have some way to reduce the noise that's there, it might be problematic.
Next question.
Next question's another one from the QR code. Sam in San Francisco asks, regarding AI, it seems that ChatGPT, Copilot, etc. do not ask any clarifying questions. Is that good or bad, and do we think they might change?
More discussion and less orders. Jeffrey Powers, what do you think?
Well, change always happens, and as new AI companies come on to play, somebody might have this idea and say, "Hey, when you put down, I want you to write me a blog post on Office Hours Global," and it comes back and brings you a couple questions. I think with the voice thing, I think I've had it where it's come back and said, "Do you mean this or this?" As opposed to doing any type of deep dive clarification on there. But for the most part, a lot of these devices, a lot of these programs have continuation options. So if you say, hey, write me a blog post on Office Hours Global, it writes it, and then you say, well, it's kind of missing this. Can you add more of this? Can you make it the style of New York Times? Can you, things like that, that will then push it forward and then get you what you're looking for. So, but it's not really thinking about what it's doing. It's just doing it from what you've prompted.
Alex?
4.0 actually asks you questions. So in the earlier versions of these, it was very much prompt driven. What you need to think about is, who are you? Who do you want ChatGPT to be? What do you want them to do? Who are they talking to? And what format do you want that content in? And you want to think about those things as the prompt. Those are the big things in the prompt that you want to be able to, who is it that's answering the question? Who is it for? What do you want them to do, and what format do you want? And if you get good at that, you're gonna get a lot of good prompts. But what I have found with 4.0 is that it will ask me additional questions. It might answer something, but it goes, like I asked it, I think I mentioned this earlier. A couple weeks ago, I asked, like, my daughter and I are going to go out on a Saturday. I'm looking for something in the East Bay and the North Bay. And they said, well, what have you done in the past? And what is your daughter like? And I started answering those questions. And it said, well, there's a pinball museum in Alameda. You might want to try that. And sure enough, we went, and it was amazing. It is not something that I would have ever Googled or thought of or even knew existed. And so it definitely, 4.0 has definitely jumped a huge leap forward in those things. So you should assume that it will try to keep the conversation going as it works.
Let's go to the next question.
Next question is from Paul Kovacs in Elkhart, Indiana. Alex, what are your compressor settings you use for the best quality output to put into a hyperdeck to feed into an ATEM ISO and then all out to zoom?
Alex. Yeah, I don't have my compressor open, but the main thing is it just depends on what you're trying to output to and why. Most of the stuff that I do are HQ because that's what I need to have. I have 10-bit, and a lot of times they're HDR. If I'm doing key fill, they're going to be the XQ, and they're going to be the Apple ProRes 444 because I need that alpha channel. So if I'm going to do an alpha channel, remember that you can't do both at the same time. One's on one card and one's on another. You can only put, the most important thing is that you can only put one format at a time on the same storage container that you put into it, whether it's an SSD or a SD card or whatever you're putting into, or a hard drive. They all have to be the same. And it's only going to see what those are, and then it won't see anything else. It will see whatever the first file is and not see anything else. So that's really important. Again, so 422 HQ is the most common that I use. If I'm using alpha channels, then it's going to be the 4444. And so it's rare for me to put anything in playback that's less than 422 HQ. So that's and then most of them will read. Again, they read that. You just have to make sure they're all the same. So even if someone sends me something that's Apple ProRes 422, I'll throw it through a compressor and recompress it so that I know that it matches bit for bit with the format that works for the playback system.
Let's go on to our next question.
Nathan Cashin in Oregon City asks, Alex, your article on virtual conferences in 2020 has mentioned events that can connect audiences in multiple cities in real time. What are the economics of these types of events? Does the virtual infrastructure cost more than savings from venue, etc.? And that's from the QR code.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, it depends on what. I'll be honest, I don't remember what article you're referring to. So you'd have to, where was it? I don't know. I don't know what I wrote in 2020. I read a lot of stuff. So, but what I will say is that in general, if you take the total economic impact, virtual events and distributed events are always going to be cheaper than than large events. So one event, again, you have to take the total cost. So not necessarily the cost to the promoter, but the total cost impact. So if I do an event in San Francisco and 500 people show up, what is the cost of all those people coming, buying hotels, flying in, all those things? That's a big expense, or let's say it's 5,000 people. That's a huge expense. There's carbon impact. There's the cost of the flights. There's the cost of the hotels. There's the lost time. There's all these other things that you have to calculate into that as well. Even if you're only the event producer, oftentimes it's going to be cheaper for you to do smaller events in a wider range of locations than it is to bring everybody together in one location. Finding a place for 5,000 people actually is harder than oftentimes finding hotel rooms that might hold 500 in 10 cities. So oftentimes, and we've done these again with Hangouts, we've done them with Zoom, we've done them with the Switch, we've done them with a lot of different ways of connecting these systems. It also means that as you start to become more virtual and less focused on the one room that you're in, your event tends to look better as it relates to the online audience, because you have different, you have the people that are in these spaces but you also have what we are tending to refer to as the 5 nines, which is the 5 nines is the 99.999% of the world that will never come to your event because they can't. They don't have the visas, they don't have the money, they don't have the time, they don't have anything else. That's what you're giving up every time you do a physical event is the 5 nines. So they're all out here. So how do you deliver? You're delivering to you may decide that these are the most important ones and you're delivering to these cities, but you also want to be delivering out to all of these other folks and making sure that they're getting a great experience as well. And the more you virtualize that event, the more it becomes palatable for that online system, to the point where we've done limited versions of this, and it's mostly having almost all the speakers or all the speakers coming in over screens. And now that has been usually because there's some limitation. The speakers couldn't make it. They don't have the time. They're usually very high profile. And bringing them in, we found that they actually had more impact than they would on stage. It's a very Wizard of Oz kind of feel where you have we've had former presidents of the United States on big screens, looking at everybody and talking to them, and they were absolutely as impactful, if not more impactful, than they would have been on stage. And so those things are, it's just a matter of tuning all those little bits and pieces to it. I think that we're going to see this continue to grow. I think that people have given up on the fact that we're going to go back to something that looks like what we had before. And the tools just keep getting better to do this. And so as those tools continue to evolve very quickly, everything basically shifted forward a decade. And as those tools continue to evolve, and as companies continue to realize that their employees are not all coming back, to the office, these distributed events are going to continue to grow. And again, you have to always remember that things are going to jut forward, and then people are going to try to push it back to where they thought it was, but then it just goes like this, that's how many technologies work. So you can expect this one to probably follow the same pattern.
Slip to our next question.
Next question is from Robert Green in Los Angeles. Apple is advertising Monday's WWDC kickoff on social media, saying to watch on YouTube Live. Is this a first?
Jeffrey Powers.
I don't know if it's actually a first that they've pushed or they've been pushing it on socials for that, but Apple has been doing WWDC on YouTube, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure when you're creating a live event. If you put it on a CDN, you got to figure out the numbers that are going to be watching it. You got to have multiple versions for people that can watch it at 1080p or 720p or 360p, if that's the case. They have the ASL option, and then I believe they have some different languages that they did last year. So you can easily have all those channels on YouTube, because once again, YouTube already has that structure put in. And if Apple's only using that structure for 4 or 5 times a year, it doesn't make sense to have to maintain it. So, it makes absolutely sense, good sense that it is part of YouTube Live, and they can set it up since they've pre-recorded it. It's all set up, ready to go, and they just have to do some minor tweaks once the event comes live.
Alex,
I think that it may be a flex by Apple. So I think that no one really understands how big their keynotes are. And so these keynotes, the rumors are that the numbers are astronomical, like bigger than broadcast, and so these are giant view numbers that no one ever gets to see. I think by pushing a lot of people towards YouTube Live, you're going to see X number, and it probably won't be as many as go to the site because everyone's trained to do that. But you may see tens or hundreds or hundreds of thousands or millions of viewers, and I think that helps Apple kind of flex and show how many people are interested in something. It's just another data point for them. I'm going to guess that might be why they're doing it. The quality of their live stream will be hampered a little bit because they have access to they have a lot of control over their own ladder. So I have a feeling that the quality on their website, if you're on a Mac, the quality is going to be higher, or if you're on an iOS device, from their own website. I don't think that's only going to be on YouTube. It might be. Maybe it is. We don't know. But YouTube is going to be a lot easier for them to promote for cross-platform. Again, to flex a little bit. And I'd be really curious to see if they take advantage of. I believe that the last keynote was done in HDR, I'll be really interested to see if they take advantage of HDR10 and 5.1 and YouTube. That'd be super interesting. So it'll be interesting to see. A reminder while we answer this question is that we will be covering it as a second ear experience. So at 10 o'clock on our show, we won't play you'll have to watch it on something else, but you can open YouTube twice, and on one side you can listen to us, then on the other side you can watch the show, and you'll hear us talk about it as it goes. And we don't just talk about the releases; we talk about the camera shots, and we talk about the graphics, and we talk about all those things as well. So it should be fun.
Looking forward to it. Next question.
Sean Johnson in New York asks, need to use PowerPoint in presenter view to a monitor and send the main out via NDI to a switcher. Is there a way using NDI scan converter or something similar to send that main presentation window out on a Mac?
Jeffrey?
So yes, but it's going to require a piece of hardware. And normally what I do is I use the Magewell Pro Convert HDMI Plus that goes out of the HDMI into the converter. And then, of course, you can do a pass-through to a TV if you want to, and then out to NDI. You then take the displays and then you extend the displays. You don't mirror the displays because the extension is going to go into the Magewell and out from there. Now, to do that without the Magewell, you would need one of these HDMI headless dongles. You basically plug that into the HDMI. It thinks that there's a second monitor attached. That is what would then bring that to NDI. Now, by doing that, you cannot see what's coming through the screen on that end, except for the person that's actually watching it through the switcher. So that, if you need to see it, you need to double present it onto a monitor as well. Then you're going to need to plug in another monitor to create a 2-monitor experience in Mac. And then you can then send that second monitor through NDI to the switcher.
Let's go to the next question.
All Kovacs in Elkhart, Indiana asks, brushing back up on my Final Cut Pro skills after a decade of not using, went back to the original FCP Virtual Users Group videos. Thanks for leaving them up. Ever think of doing these again or a great place like this?
Alex?
I'm glad you enjoyed them. We did those so long ago, and they were really experimenting with how we do in the rounds and how we do. They evolved over time on the Pixel Core. If you go to the Pixel Core YouTube channel, you'll see some of them there. We have thought about it a lot to do them again. There were some things that we were doing there, like sharing our telestration and everything among each other, that would be hard to do now. Not impossible, but and we didn't use them that much. And so we've thought about it because nowadays it'd be a lot easier. It's the share screen and make it all work. But I guess we walked away from that, and now that you brought it up, I feel almost compelled that we need to start thinking about those again. So I'll talk to the usual suspects. Bill used to be on with us. Chris Fenwick came on.
It was so much fun to go up to
Sam Messman, and of course the Ripple, Mark and Steve. So
Steve, yeah.
It was so much fun to do it together, and we'd all go out to dinner afterwards. So there won't be any dinners, but I think it'd be really fun to do again. We'll think about that. So stay tuned.
You could take a half an hour after the show and all order pizza individually and have a virtual dinner.
Exactly. That'd be great.
Compare orders.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let's go to the next question.
Steve Bauer in Seattle asks, will the Shure MV2X2U digital audio interface provide enough lift to provide a reasonable level going into your computer via its USB output?
Alexander, really quick, though. We're running out of time here.
According to the specifications, it has 60 dB of gain, so that's enough for most dynamic mics, with the exception of certain extreme ones or certain ribbon microphones. It also depends on your voice and how loud you talk. You'd have to test
Fair enough. So a few notes before we slip into the second hour and our guest. The new panelist meeting is at 9 a.m. on Saturday. So if you're interested in participating as a panelist on Office Hours, this is your chance to get kind of a look behind the scenes at what's coming up. In our second hour, we're talking about eCam's live streaming and video production studio for Mac and their new Zoom integration. So we have 3 guests coming up that are appearing now. Tomorrow on the show, we're looking at Ivy League sports with Imre Halve, who is an associate director of athletics at Harvard Harvard University. That should be a fascinating show. On Saturday, it's Q&A as usual. On Sunday, as always, that's a bit more philosophical. And it's also a show we do not broadcast on YouTube. So it's where we have a chance to experiment a bit and also discuss more introspective and speculative topics. So stick around for those. Also remember, every single day, 24/7, when the show is not on, After Hours is in operation. And as noted here when Alex was talking about it earlier, if you show up in After Hours and don't see anything except a series of boxes and names, that's because somebody's always live there in the background. And if you show up, ask a question, or otherwise interact with it, you'll see people starting to pop up. It's a great place to get your tech questions answered the rest of the time that the live show is not on. So stand by for that. We'll be right back. Among the more powerful